Hi everyone. So the last video looked at the overall structure of main paragraphs in your critical essays. The next four videos are going to look at each of the individual sections of those paragraphs, the statements, the evidence, the analysis, and the comments. So this one here is going to look at the statements that we use at the start of each of your main paragraphs. So the job of the statement is to, as it says, introduce the point you're going to make. Some of you might remember in school, you might have been sometimes told to use a topic sentence for a paragraph, which sort of introduces what's coming up. It's the same basic principle, but it's not just about sort of flatly introducing the point you're going to make, because you also have to make sure that it helps to make the essay all flow together as a continuous thing that the marker can read. So that's why it's really important to both provide context and link the essay together using those statements. So you provide context sometimes by referencing maybe what's happening at the particular part in the poem or the play or the story from which you're about to quote, giving a little bit of sort of context around, say, like the characters and what they're doing or the plot or something like that, just enough to make it clear where all of this is coming from and show the, as it says, the kind of the context in which it exists. And then, as you'll see in some of the examples, you want to be using sort of key phrases that link the paragraphs together through these statements as well, so that your paragraphs don't read as 5 individual paragraphs, which makes them read like sets of notes. You want it to read like an essay, funnily enough. And if you use the statements that way, it means that your argument will develop gradually as you go through the essay. They'll connect with the comments in the previous paragraphs in particular, and it'll make everything flow really, really nicely, and it'll get you better marks, basically, at the end of it. So some examples here, these would be examples from the first main paragraph. The author begins by, the author opens the story with, so that's the kind of little bits of context, and then you're sort of explaining where the point is going to go. So for that first one there, early insight into the speaker's state of mind and struggle to control his emotions, that's then going to lead into a quotation that's going to show us somebody who is really, really struggling, going through something really difficult, and it's manifesting in some kind of way, and you know that from that statement because it introduces what's coming very nicely. That's basically what we're looking for. Make it nice and clear for the marker where you're going all the time, same as you had to do in the introduction for the whole essay. Do it the same, see these as like an introduction to each paragraph, I suppose. So other examples here, once you're further on in the essay, the theme of isolation is further explored. See, just adding in that further explored type of stuff there. It allows you to have everything feel for the marker as though you've actually thought the issue through and you're working your way through it all gradually, which is a big part of how we mark essays in English. We mark the entire text, as I said in one of the earlier videos. And you can also use these obviously to then signal a shift in your argument, or show that you're moving on to a different point or taking a different kind of focus with that second one there. Having established this conflict, the author uses the scene to then show how this influences some other feature of the text, in that case the rest of the family in that particular play that I've either referenced or made up. So those are some sort of examples that you could use of statements. This has been done as a video so that you can go back and pause it and use them, and you can adapt these and try changing them and modifying them for essays that you're doing, but you should try and maintain this kind of approach all the time. Keep these things in mind. So remember, one of the things actually to really remember, don't focus on individual techniques. You'll notice that what you sometimes see is students who they'll write, the author then uses a metaphor, or the author's use of word choice is then effective. The problem with mentioning techniques in the statement is that you limit what you can say in the rest of the paragraph, or at least you limit what you can relevantly say. If you save the mention of the techniques for the analysis section, which we'll go on to in a couple of videos, you'll find it's generally more effective. Use those linking terms to pull everything together, and act as though the marker hasn't read the text. That's a good rule in general, because if you do that, then it helps to remind you to do the kind of context part as well. They need to understand what's going on. They don't know as much as you do. That's the thing here. So you need to use these statements to sort of take them by the hand, introduce the point that's going to be made, and make sure they can get their way through it, understanding the things that you want them to understand. Okay, so the next video we'll be looking at how we use evidence in the critical essays, usual stuff. Any problems, questions, absolutely anything at all, just get in touch and I will help you however I can. Cheers.